What's going on? We got a big stream today. I'm going to be covering everything related to the Epstein files as far as I can. We're going to be getting into a lot of different stuff related to CSAM and government cover-ups. Today's a little different from your average stream. I don't know how else to say this, but if you've got kids in the room, make sure that they're not in the room anymore. Alright, so we're about to get started. Give me 1 second, and then I'll do an intro. Let's see, what's the best way to do this? Alright, let's do it this way. Alright, everybody. Welcome to the show. We have a lot of stuff to cover today. This stream is going to be pretty intense. We're getting into a lot of different stuff that a lot of people don't want us to get into. A lot of people. From top to bottom, this is a lot of different stories that have been covered up over and over again. And we're not going to let it continue. If you have children around, this is not the kind of stream where you want them to be around. We're going to be covering a lot of explicit materials. It's going to be a lot of really heavy stuff. So as we're getting started, I'm going to play this. All right. It's hard to get into this. While I was doing research for this project, I found myself in a really difficult position. This is a really tough topic to have to handle. So I don't really see a better way of dealing with it than just getting right into the details. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and get myself where I need to be. All right. Hey, there you are. Welcome to the show. It's good to see you. I don't know if you were able to see the intro, but here's the opener that I made for this show today. If you're watching me on your TV today, and I want to just reiterate this a few times, I did a lot of research for this stream in particular, and I just want to make sure that there's no problems. So I'm going to play this one more time. If you're just tuning in, make sure you subscribe for more well-researched, detailed content like this. We're about to get into the meat and potatoes, but this is what we're dealing with today. All right? That's what we're going over. It's pretty deep and nasty stuff. It was really difficult to research and get ready for, but it was also necessary. Okay? Let me get this out of here. I don't know how. Okay, there we go. It is. It's very sad. And unfortunately, Donald Trump is a part of this story in a very big way. So we're going to start off by reading a statement he made just a few hours ago. Radical left Democrats have hit pay dirt again. Just like with the fake and fully discredited Steele dossier, the lying 51 intelligence agents, the laptop from hell, which the Dems swore had come from Russia. No, it came from Hunter Biden's bathroom. And even the Russia scam itself, a totally fake and made-up story used in order to hide crooked Hillary Clinton's big loss in the 2016 presidential election. These scams and hoaxes are all the Democrats are good at. It's all they have. They're no good at governing, no good at policy, and no good at picking winning candidates. Also, unlike Republicans, they stick together like glue. Their new scam is what we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax, and my past supporters have bought into this bullshit hook, line, and sinker. They haven't learned their lesson, and they probably never will. After being conned by the lunatic left for 8 long years, I have had more success in 6 months than perhaps any president in our country's history. And all these people want to talk about, with strong prodding by fake news and the success by starved Dems, is the Epstein hoax. Let these weaklings continue forward and do the Democrats' work. Don't even think about talking of our incredible and unprecedented success, because I don't want their support anymore. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. This is basically saying pretty straight up that if you care about what's in the Epstein files, we don't want your support anymore. That's difficult for me because I've always supported Donald Trump as a moderate candidate. And I always cared about the Epstein files. I thought it was important. And one of the reasons why I voted for him was that I thought he would release them. So I've taken the time, as usual, to bring up a full and complete Google Doc. As you know, if you watch this stream, when the Google Doc comes out, and you're on the other end of the barrel of it, you're in trouble. I don't play when it comes to research, and today is no different. I've established by and through many hours of research a little story, basically, that I'll be sharing with you today. And that story paints one picture, one of deep state collusion, disgusting and overt cover-ups of child sexual assault material. One that makes it obvious that we're dealing with something way above our heads and our pay grade, and one that I will be planning on turning into a documentary on this very same topic. Now, if you're just tuning in, thanks for joining us today. I want you to make sure that you subscribe. If you are already subscribed, then make sure you're subscribed again. Make sure that little bell is on, and make sure you tell your friends to subscribe if they like well-researched, in-depth breakdowns of political content. We're not going to back down. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, especially not if you're obfuscating and covering for child sexual assault and trafficking. there's a special place in hell for people who participate in these types of disgusting acts. And there's nothing that quite fires up there's nothing, I don't know how to say it. There's nothing that quite fires me up quite like this. It's a difficult thing for me as somebody who doesn't agree with the death penalty to be getting into this topic, because I can't stay principled and overtly called for the hanging and destroying of people like this in public, but that's exactly what I want to see. Now, on a lighter note, I do have a new character, you may have noticed. This is an upgrade. I'm no longer AI drawn, I am now hand drawn by an artist. I just want to say a quick thank you to the artist who put this together. I really appreciate you, and I'm looking forward to our future collabs once you finally debut. Debut is a thing that VTubers do, primarily. And so yeah, I'm really happy about it. I think it looks pretty good. I've got some slightly updated versions that will be blinking in the future, so that's like kind of a big step forward, but we have a lot of really important stuff to get into, so I almost forgot about it, but it's important. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, chat. So we're going to get right into this. I have a big, long doc. Basically, we have this really nasty story from front to back. Nothing about this is clean. Nothing about this makes sense. Especially the most recent reactions and the handling of it from the federal government. And we're going to get into that a little bit later on, but I want to build a proper and distinct background to the story here, because the events of the story go back nearly 20 years, 24 years. People have whispered and known about the Epstein files and the Epstein documents since about 2001. It was just after this that Virginia Giuffre, who was then 17, alleged that she was trafficked by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to powerful elites, including Prince Andrew, and she begins keeping records. These are from the court documents and her official lawsuit. Here you can see what she looked like at the age of 17. And she clearly looks underage here. This is an excerpt from the filing. I visited and traveled with Jeffrey Epstein from 1999 through the summer of 2002. And during that time I stayed with him as a sex slave at each of his houses. Really more like mansions, in locations including New York, New York City, the area of Santa Fe, New Mexico, Palm Beach, Florida, an island in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Paris, France. I had sex with him often. It was around 9/11. I had sex with him often in these places, and also with various people he demanded that I have sex with. Epstein paid me for many of these sexual encounters. In fact, my only purpose for Epstein, Maxwell, and their friends was to be used for sex. Many years later, and recently, Virginia Giuffre reappeared in the news after Jeffrey Epstein had supposedly killed himself in 2019. The story goes like this. On March 24th, 2024, there was a school bus incident where Giuffre was involved in a car accident involving a school bus in Western Australia. In a now viral Instagram post, she claimed, "My body is shutting down, my kidneys are failing, and I have 4 days to live." The post was later described by Giuffre as intended to be private, only shared because she wanted to say goodbye to her children. However, the school bus driver, Ross Munns, publicly disputed her version. He claimed the accident was low speed and that she pulled out in front of him and clipped her vehicle after honking. Stated she appeared uninjured and got out of the car unaided. The accident was logged as a minor accident with no injuries reported and approximately $2,000 Australian in damage occurred. All my sources are listed below all of these topics. If you want to look into them, you're free to do so. Now, this is where things get a little weird with this story because she was allegedly worsened. Her condition allegedly worsened days after the crash. Her family said she returned home after being checked, but was later readmitted to the hospital. Now, official sources originally claim that the accident occurred at a speed of around 110 miles per hour, but Ross Munns claimed that it was a low-speed accident where she pulled out and he clipped her vehicle after honking. Her condition worsened, and her family said that after returning home and being checked, she was later readmitted to the hospital. But a month later, remember, this is March 24th, April 25th, almost a month later exactly, she committed suicide on her family's property in West Australia. Her family confirmed her death, attributing it to the toll of abuse she endured, but she made a statement after her bus accident that she has 4 days left to live. And she said, "I just want to say goodbye to my children." Well, this is all very confusing. Either Virginia was actually in an accident that was extremely intense that caused her to feel that she needed to say goodbye to her children and made her believe she had 4 days left to live. And at the same time, the bus driver was disputing her version of the story, claiming it was a low-speed accident. Well, I mean, people say these sorts of things to cover their ass, but then you look at the timeline and realize that she doesn't die until a month later, and then when she does die, it's to her own hand. This is one of the most completely insane, unbelievable, doesn't even make sense in a movie stories I've ever heard. It makes no sense at all. It's one or the other. She either killed herself or she was killed in this accident, and I just don't know where this information got all mixed up. Who's lying? Is Ross Munns lying to cover his ass and save his career, or Virginia didn't lie herself really either, it seems like. I don't know. There's something very strange about this whole situation. But she wasn't the only one. She died by suicide in April 2025 as one of the victims, but an Epstein associate and co-conspirator has been missing since January of 2024. Another fashion model rumored to have traveled to Epstein's island has died by suicide in 2008. Epstein's modeling scout and recruiter arrested in France for trafficking minors died by suicide in February of 2022. Why are there so many people around Epstein? Are there medical reports? Not yet. This is a very fresh story. April was only a few months ago, so there's not much to go off of yet. I haven't looked into these older stories as deeply, but it's interesting enough that there's so many strange disappearances and deaths by suicide surrounding Epstein. Now, admittedly, a common result of being a victim of sex trafficking or child sex industry tends to be that people from the trauma kill themselves. So maybe there's nothing to it. Maybe this is totally on par with exactly what we should expect to happen to victims like this. But the issue isn't that she killed herself. To me, the issue is this story a month prior. This changes everything, in my opinion. Let's move forward to 2005. Palm Beach PD begins investigating Epstein after reports of underage abuse. This is 4 years later, after the original Virginia Giuffre story releases. By this time, people who were more conspiracy-minded tended to speak about the Epstein files in sort of closed-door settings, where they were referring to it as a great cover-up. Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what tends to happen. What Merrill said is calling the death. No insurance money for families to claim. I mean, that's a common thing with the suicides. Now, that's one of the reasons why they tend to commit suicide. If you're conspiracy-minded like I am, let me take a step back here. If you're conspiracy-minded like I am, people who tend to commit suicide don't tend to do it themselves when they're involved in cases like these. They tend to commit suicide by shooting themselves in the chest 4 or 5 times. This is a separate issue from the people who do actually commit suicide. Now, that being said, these people who do it, their families are not able to collect any money from life insurance for this. This is actually the reason in our society why suicide is illegal in the first place. People will say it's a lot of different things, like a bullshit system and blah, blah, blah. But in reality, legally speaking, that's the reason. It's so that people can't collect on insurance money. If they die early, okay, so let's move forward. We don't know enough about that story to make any further generalizations or situations, but one thing I can say about Virginia Giuffre, and her story moves forward a little bit later on here, is God bless her and her family, and I pray that in her next life she lives a more peaceful and sweet life that isn't marred by this type of abuse. And I pray that that's the case for anybody now and for anybody currently going through this. And so that's where I'm just going to leave that for now. 4 years later, and 4 years of speculating by the conspiracy theory community, which has been proven right on nearly everything they possibly believed in, we get to the Palm Beach Police Department investigating Epstein after reports of underage abuse. Chat says amen, and I agree. A woman reports that her 14-year-old stepdaughter was paid $300 to strip and massage Epstein at his Palm Beach mansion. The Palm Beach Police Chief Michael Ryder opens a full investigation. There's undercover surveillance. There's police collecting evidence from 5 victims and 17 witnesses. Found discarded messages, sheets, sex toys, and notes from girls. Chief Ryder later described Epstein's home as a sexual pyramid scheme targeting minors. Miami Herald Perversion of Justice series by Julia K. Brown goes ahead and releases a lot of this information, and the Palm Beach Post timeline has Palm Beach Post has a timeline of the investigation. Palm Beach PD refers the case to Palm Beach State Attorney Barry Kreischer, who downplays the charges. Ryder, unsatisfied, takes the case to the FBI, which launches Operation Leap Year. Collected testimony from over 30 underage victims. FBI recommended multiple federal charges for sex trafficking minors. The FBI case summary released via court order. Justice Department review, Office of Professional Responsibility. This is all in 2005. Later in 2005, faced with mounting evidence from Detective Ryder, Kreischer convened a grand jury followed by trial-level prosecution. Kreischer is the individual from before who was put in charge as the state attorney of the case and downplayed the charges. He convened a grand jury followed by trial-level prosecution. Rather than pursuing multiple charges, he presented only 2 minor solicitation counts with a 17-year-old. All my sources are listed. In 2006, prosecutors portrayed victims as unreliable, referring to them dismissively as prostitutes and drug addicts, according to the unsealed transcripts. Police chief... This is really difficult for me to deal with. Police Chief Ryder publicly called Kreischer's handling a failure of justice, noting he was pressured by Epstein's defense team and urged Kreischer to recuse himself. So Ryder is the G here. He's the real guy trying to get some protection for these poor girls. Kreischer's decision triggered delays that led to the FBI to take over. Kreischer's decision triggered delays that led to the FBI taking over, resulting in the 2008 plea deal with Alex Acosta. Alex Acosta at the time was the AG of Florida. Epstein gets a sweetheart plea deal, 13 months work release facilitated by Acosta. Oh, I'm sorry, U.S. Attorney from the Southern District of Florida. The deal is cut. Prosecutorial collapse. Despite extensive federal evidence, Alex Acosta, then Attorney General, attorney for Southern District, Florida, negotiates a non-prosecution agreement with Epstein's legal team. He pleads guilty, 2 counts of solicitation, one involving a minor, and sentenced to 13 months, but gets work release, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. I worked that shift normal without being on work release for the past 4 years, I'd like to add. Federal charges are dropped. Victims not informed of the deal, and which is a violation of federal law. How can you not tell the victims when you cut a deal like that? There's more. Federal full NPA document was released by the Miami Herald. Victim Rights Law Center analysis of CVRA violations. That's what we're talking about right here. Acosta's press conference defending the deal happens in 2019. We're not going to cover all of these bits. We're going to cover the most important bits because this story is actually just the beginning and we're leading into a different story altogether. Everybody's talking about the Epstein story, but there's something a little deeper going on here. And that's what we're going to be getting into this stream. Guthrie files an affidavit in 2015 implicating Prince Andrew and Alan Dershowitz, as well as some others, but photos emerge. I'm going to break down the 2 main ones. We have Alan Dershowitz and Prince Andrew. Now, there's some controversy pertaining to the Alan Dershowitz one, and there's a few reasons why. The main one is that he sued, and there's actually some coverage from Megyn Kelly where she explains that Dershowitz was innocent, and that Guthrie was informed by someone close to her that it would be a good idea for her to post or include Dershowitz in the memo so that it would bring more eyes to the case. So let's go over Dershowitz. He has a connection to Epstein and served as defense attorney on Epstein's legal team during the mid-2000 investigations, represented him during the negotiation of the 06 and 08 non-prosecution agreement, which happened just right up here. The deal is cut. His accusations by Guthrie include an allegation in a 2015 deposition that Epstein trafficked her to Dershowitz multiple times, claims he vigorously denied and labeled false. In defamation lawsuits in 2019, Guthrie sued Dershowitz for defamation. He countersued and defended himself aggressively. In 2022, after Epstein's passing, there was a settlement where Guthrie and Dershowitz reached a non-monetary settlement, in which Guthrie stated that she may have made a mistake in identifying him, effectively withdrawing the accusations. Dershowitz pushed to unseal Epstein-related court filings, arguing they would exonerate him after the release. He issued a 31-minute video rebuttal titled "The Epstein List and Guilty by Association." Dershowitz has since maintained his innocence and has still been calling for the release and unsealing of the Epstein court filings. However, Prince Andrew had his allegations emerge in 2001 when Guthrie, then 17, claimed she was trafficked to Prince Andrew by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, including incidents in New York and London. In 2001, Johannes Schjoberg alleged Prince Andrew groped her breast in Epstein's townhouse while holding a puppet replica of him. Just weird story. 2019, Andrew gave a high-profile interview on BBC asking what's going on here and explaining his overturned alibi, which was widely criticized. In this video, he makes the insane claim that he couldn't have been the one because he is incapable of sweating. That's what his claim was. Guthrie sued Andrew in New York federal court for sexual assault stemming from alleged trafficking when she was a minor. Out-of-court settlement was reached in 2022, and Andrew did not admit guilt but made substantial donation to Guthrie's charity. Very different types of settlements between Andrew and Dershowitz. This is why I bring attention to it. The FBI investigation closed shortly thereafter, with FBI formally citing no evidence of a client list or grounds for criminal charges. After this, he stepped back from his duties in 2019, stripped of his titles and banned from traveling to the United States. This is him clearly standing with Virginia Guthrie and Ghislaine Maxwell in 2001 at the Tramp nightclub in London. After his claims that he was incapable medically of sweating, this video emerged, or picture emerged. Careful when you're looking this up, there are a lot of fakes out there, but this one is real. This is him at a club sweating as he's running because everybody sweats and he has no dermatological or medical record that his own doctors agree with that state that he is not capable of sweating. The story around him was so damning, in fact, that on January 13th, 2022, and Buckingham Palace announced that Prince Andrew would no longer be known as His Royal Highness, and his military titles and royal patronages were returned to the Queen. This was by order of the Queen. These actions officially removed his public-facing roles in the monarchy, although he retained the title of Duke of York privately, pending parliamentary action. 2019 comes around, not long after the events of the beginning of this. And at that time, Epstein is rearrested in New York on federal sex trafficking charges. This is following a story released by the Miami Herald that reignited public fervor for answers in the equation. This was held at the MCC in Manhattan. We've got a video to watch. I know this is a lot, but it's going to start breaking up and being a little bit more fluid now. So let's get into it.
This is the worst cover-up of my lifetime, the Epstein case. The reason I'm talking about it so much is because if you...
This is a overall summary of things that happened since 2019. We're going to watch it together. We're going to go over some different details. Make sure that if you're just now joining up, you go ahead and make sure that you like and subscribe. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video. And for now, enjoy this breakdown of the Epstein coverage that we're going to be doing together.
You really can get away with anything. If the government can tell people to not believe what they just said a few months ago and have everyone be fine with that, that's just a level of gaslighting that I refuse to be a part of. Never forget.
So my biggest criticism of the Trump administration is this handling of all this. When this first started, I was probably the first person who voted for Trump who didn't identify as like a right-wing conservative, to say that Pam Bondi was a terrible choice for the district attorney, or sorry, for the AG role. I wanted to see Matt Gaetz because I don't think that he would have held back in the same way that Pam Bondi did. Now, I looked into it pretty deeply, and previously I would have claimed that Pam Bondi was in charge of Florida when the Epstein files first broke, but that's not really true. She has no relation to him or anything going on as far as I can find, but it seems to me, based on the way she's been handling it, that she either has a personal vendetta or gripe against Trump and is somehow trying to ruin him, or she does in fact have somebody close to her that isn't public that she's covering for in regards to the Epstein documents and files, because there's no other way to make sense of her actions and reactions for this whole thing. Let's get back into it.
They just promised us names in the release of the Epstein files.
Breaking news right now, you're going to see some Epstein information being released.
What kind?
A lot of flight logs, a lot of names, a lot of information.
But in this case, in Epstein's case,
nothing was actually released.
it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
I don't see how it's not shocking that there were so many individuals that were hidden and kept secret and not been held accountable.
Yeah, well, apparently.
What's shocking really is the handling by the federal government of these documents and their inability to show them to the public. Their inability to follow up and be credible. If they had just said nothing, because this was one of their campaign promises, if they had just said nothing, then people wouldn't be talking about it right now, which is one of the things that is the most fascinating about this entire thing. They could have not said anything, or they could have at the very least said something along the lines of, we're currently investigating it, we can't release anything yet, we have to make sure that we're not putting out names of people that weren't actually involved, and something like that. But in reality, that's not what they're doing, and the incompetence that we're seeing should raise red flags for everybody across the aisle.
Apparently, there are no names to be given, no list, no.
Specifically in regards to the release or lack thereof of these files.
Blackmail. Epstein has now been pushed as a lone trafficker. It's the lone trafficker theory, guys. Essentially, the government.
Pam Bondi said that there was more than 10,000 videos, and in a great number of them, they included Epstein himself. Now, I don't understand how it's possible that they have that many videos of CSAM and only Epstein is seen in any of those videos. It just makes no sense considering what we know about the story leading up to it and thereafter. It's simply impossible. There's literally nobody who believes any of this, and if you do, you're kind of retarded, and I don't have anything to say to you.
The memo that they just released contradicts everything we've seen before, and now basically.
Let's go over this really quickly. He is probably going to do it himself, but I'd like to do it myself as well. No incriminating client list. This is all within the past couple of weeks. No credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals. Horse shit. I mean, on its face, that's complete horse shit. Chat says, I heard that it is possible there are worldwide names on these lists and it's too dangerous for our safety to be released. And that may be true. And that's another thing that they could have said. They could have said, look, we want to release these files, but the reality is that doing so would result in the dissolving of multiple alliances across the world and could potentially lead to nuclear proliferation of some kind. It only takes the loss of one or two allies to weaken us to the point to which opposing forces feel that they're motivated and positioned well enough to make attacks on other regions, like for instance China and Taiwan and things of that nature. But That's not what they said. What they said was, we have it and we're going to release it. But they didn't. And now they're just saying there's nothing to see here. There's no client list. There's no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals. There's no evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. It may be worldwide, but that's not our responsibility. And frankly, I don't really accept that. Let's say that that's true. I don't accept that as an answer. Just period. I just don't accept that as an answer. There is a zero amount of children that it is okay to sacrifice to the rest of the world in favor of preventing some kind of a war. The amount of children it's okay to sacrifice to the rest of the world is 0 children. That is the correct amount of children. So even if it would cause that, pragmatically, I am not okay with that. The correct amount of children to be sacrificed to pedophiles, rapists, monsters, in order to prevent nuclear proliferation across the world is 0. Last I checked, the United States military is strong enough to face any nation on Earth 3 times over. U.S. citizens should be treated like Romans were. Of course nobody is okay with this. Of course nobody is. Of course nobody's okay with this. And that's my point. That's why I'm being loud about it. Because we need to make as much noise about it as possible. Because if there is literally no support for Republicans leading up to the midterms, they will have no choice but to respond. They will have no choice but to respond. That's just how it works. United States citizens in the world right now should be treated the same way the Romans were. They should be protected. You shouldn't be able to try them for anything outside of the United States, because you should be so afraid of the US and its power, economically, literally, that you don't have the balls to take these people up on charges for anything. Let's get back into this video. By the way, this is CoffeeZilla. This says Voidzilla, but Voidzilla. Make sure you go and subscribe.
Basically implies that Epstein was trafficking to himself, and Ghislaine Maxwell was trafficking to Epstein.
I know,
no
chat. Chat said, I'm a mother and a grandmother. It's not okay. Nobody thinks it's okay. Whether you're mother, grandmother, father, or grandfather.
Just from his skill as
Nobody
a New
thinks
York
that this is
financier.
okay.
I'm talking about Jeff Epstein.
Which is why everybody wants this
Basically,
information.
he was the world's greatest tax advisor by day and the world's greatest trafficker at night to himself. And the rich and powerful people who all flocked to him and to his island had no idea.
Because we're not all just mothers
that
and
really
fathers
kind
and
of the heart of
grandfathers
the
and
modern
grandmothers.
era.
We're
Just
also
all
children.
Epstein by himself,
And we
then
all
his
have
friends
gone through
just were
this
there
phase.
for
We
his
all know how
tax advice,
delicate it
despite
is,
not
and we
being
all
a
know
tax
how important it
professional
is
or
to
a lawyer.
protect and
Not only that,
preserve.
another huge revelation is the fact that really the government has increased the number of victims and decreased the number of perpetrators, right? We had the idea that there were these other perpetrators for a while, that they were just redacted because the government was building cases. Now we got pretty clear statements that there isn't evidence to bring future cases on third parties. But if you look at the original...
Even if there isn't, that's all the more reason to release the files right now. Right now.
2019 indictment, it says dozens of victims. This is from Ken Klippenstein. But the Epstein review says over 1,000 victims. So what happened, guys? And by the way, in the interim, they also increased the number to 200.
I think that the reality is that the people who are in charge of this information are saying whatever sounds the best because they know that they don't intend on releasing it ever. And, you know, on the one hand, that's fine. If nobody's ever going to see the reality behind this, then make up whatever you want, I guess. But on the other hand, it's pretty obvious that there's a full-blown cover-up going on. It doesn't matter who you voted for in 2020 or 2024. This is one of the most disgusting, underhanded, nonsense, bullshit government corruption cases that's ever existed in the history of the United States.
200 to 250.
200 victims. 200. So we have well over 250 actually.
So we went from dozens to 200 to over 1,000 in the span of basically a year in terms of victims. We like 10x the number of victims.
Based on information we'll be going over later in the stream, I don't find it hard to believe that more than 1,000 victims were involved. And we're going to get into that stuff a little bit later, but I really don't find that difficult to believe.
But now there's no perpetrators. Like the perpetrators have been reduced. That is the crazy thing about what they're implying here, what this lone trafficker theory is pushing forward. It's also...
Yeah, according to the federal government, the amount of perpetrators is 1 Prince Andrew. And that's it.
Strange, because previously, Epstein, in a court filing, is said to have provided information to the FBI as agreed upon. Case agent advised that no federal prosecution will occur in this matter as long as Epstein continues to uphold his agreement with the state of Florida. So apparently there was some deal where Epstein was providing information.
Let's take a look at the doc. Who was that deal with? What was the name again? Not Dershowitz. It was Barry Kreischer. Cut that deal. So if you've got the time and the means, we should be looking into Barry Kreischer deeply to figure out exactly what happened as far as the cover-up is concerned.
To the FBI. What information? We don't know because no one else was involved. There's also the simple fact that if you go to the FBI records, what they call the vault, most of the files are just heavily redacted. So the idea...
The Phase 1 files that were released by Pam Bondi, the quote-unquote Phase 1 files, were more redacted than what was already publicly available at the time. I want you to keep that in mind as we continue forward.
That we got some transparency wave is literally a joke. Yes, it is true. There's no Epstein list where there's like names written down, but names exist in documents, on videos, in images, and they're all redacted. What's going on here? They're going to say, oh, it's all for the victims, right? But it's not all victim names. In addition to that, this lone trafficker theory is already on shaky grounds when you think about Prince Andrew's settlement with Virginia Giuffre, where he paid $16 million to make civil sexual assault allegations go away. Now, of course, it's worth saying that he did not.
Those donations were made to her charity. Just for clarity.
I admit to guilt. This was a settlement, but that is what you're always going to have with these rich and powerful.
It matters more because the settlement that happened just prior with Dershowitz did not include anything like that. It included a public apology from Virginia where she basically said, I may have misremembered who was involved. And then a privately leaked story about how he was added onto the case to add eyes to the case, which comes from Megyn Kelly. So take with that what you will. I don't believe any of these people, so it's just as likely to me on my bullshit detector that Dershowitz was involved as he was not. But there is a distinct difference between the way that the settlement with Dershowitz ended versus the settlement with Prince Andrew ended.
Powerful people. In the same way, you also have Leon Black, who reportedly paid $158 million over 5 years to Jeffrey Epstein for tax advice. And guess what? Leon Black, billionaire, also paid the U.S. Virgin Islands $62 million in cash as part of a settlement, a non-prosecution, where they wouldn't go after him for anything.
The average cost of high-end legal tax advice depends on various factors, such as the complexity, the lawyer's experience and expertise. High-end tax advice costs vary based on the attorney's fee structure. Hourly rates typically range from $200 to $400, but experienced lawyers in major cities may charge over $1,000 per hour. Okay.
From, quote, any and all claims of
A little different from 62 million.
any nature whatsoever, specifically related to Jeffrey Epstein. It's worth noting that $15 million of this cash payment will be going to counseling programs and activities or mental health services. You also have Jess Staley, the former boss of Barclays. He directly admitted to having sex with a member of Epstein's staff, which you would
That could have been anyone. He had so many staff.
expect if someone was running a trafficking operation, although I just have to say that there was a statement that this was entirely consensual, and I'm not saying anything about that. I'm simply saying the idea that Epstein was just trafficking for himself is unlikely to be true in my opinion. Later, Staley wrote to Epstein, "Say hi to Snow White." Epstein replied, "What character would you like next?" Staley responded, "Beauty and the Beast."
If not for the... So, typically Snow White would be a reference to cocaine use. In this context, though, it's pretty clear that they meant something a little bit more sick.
East. And then Jeffrey Epstein said, well, one side is available. Obviously, some type of coded message. You can read into that for yourself. But all of this is public. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what makes the government's memo so infuriating.
It's true. There's so much public information about this that it's impossible to look the other way. There's no charitable... There's no charitable way to look at this. The government is just lying. And it doesn't matter who's in charge, apparently, when it comes to this particular case.
Is so much reporting has already been done. These settlements with powerful figures, under denials, yes, but also under very questionable circumstances, make just a complete denial and statement that all of this was just Epstein impossible to believe. In September 2009, Epstein also emailed a woman named Irina to tell her that Jess Staley is staying in the Berkeley Hotel in London tonight. Staley emailed Epstein the next day to say, "I should have taken your offer," according to the Times. There's also this book by one of the 60 Minutes correspondents called A Ticking Clock, where he says that he met with Ghislaine Maxwell, and he said,
Pretty sure it's Ghislaine.
At a table at Regency Bar. I know he was videotaping everyone. I want the tape of Trump with the girls. She didn't deny the existence of the tapes, but said, "I don't know where they are." He apparently replied, "Ask Epstein," and she gave him a stern look and pointed a finger at my face. "I'm the daughter of a press baron. I know the way you people think. If you do one side, you must do the other. If you get tapes on Trump, you have to do Clinton." Now, again...
So... this is an interesting thing, and also, very likely, a good amount of it's fake. That's a thing that I totally understand from the perspective of the government. Now, I'm not saying, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying that Trump had nothing to do with this. I'm just saying that if you're Ghislaine Maxwell and you're already getting trumped up on all these charges, for lack of a better term, there is no reason for you not to lie when you know the statement could be public.
what you make of a third-hand source like this talking to Ghislaine Maxwell?
Now, she also has said recently that she would be okay with testifying publicly to Congress, and I want to see that happen right away.
Who apparently doesn't deny that some of these tapes exist. Was she even telling the truth or just playing some game? Either way, this was all known about, not just by people after the fact, but allegedly by people during the fact. This is from Mark Epstein. It's sourced from Jeffrey Epstein. Quote, "If I said what I know about both candidates, they'd have to cancel the election." That's what Jeffrey told me in 2016. So not even Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell allegedly were claiming this was all just between.
It's Ghislaine. I don't know why that bugs me so much. She's a predator who ruined so many lives, but I do want to hear him say Ghislaine and not Ghislaine.
Between them. They were constantly insinuating that there were compromising things on various powerful people. What's funny is that Trump himself, even before he was in a position to declassify this stuff, had accused other powerful people of doing these things.
Bill Clinton.
Nice guy. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein.
That island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew.
You also have the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was in touch with other convicted pedophiles. Larry Nassar, he was writing letters. So the idea, once again, that he was just by himself, off by himself, doing things on his island by himself, and then taking calls with people like Bill Gates simply for philanthropic advice, really pushes the bounds of belief. Don't forget, a close associate of Bill Gates was named a fallback executor on the will of Jeffrey Epstein, which he, by the way, said he was shocked by and he deeply regrets meeting Epstein. Bill Gates has said similar things to that effect. Of course, Bill
I wouldn't be surprised if Gates, if Clinton, if Trump, if all of these people were involved.
Gates fraternized with Epstein after he was convicted of crimes.
Gates especially, he just is a creepy fuck. He's a super creepy fuck, and I would not be surprised at all.
Previously, he told the Wall Street Journal, I didn't have any business relationship or friendship with him, but in fact, he met multiple times with him at his Manhattan townhouse. Now, once again, I have to say real quick, all of these people are innocent until proven guilty. All of them deny doing anything untoward. But my point is, there are already too many associations to make the lone trafficker theory make any sense. For example,
Agent Jean-Luc Brunel, now deceased.
Well, Jean-Luc Brunel was somebody who apparently trafficked a bunch of people to Epstein, who himself abused a bunch of women and even was charged for it. He was charged for some really awful things and then later found dead in his cell. Interestingly, Epstein was actually a financier of Brunel's modeling agency, where a lot of this alleged abuse happened. So once again, the idea...
See, this is the thing, and chat just said agreed a minute ago, and I know what that was referring to. Nobody cares if it was Clinton, if it was Trump, if it was Prince Andrew, if it was Bill, if it was Gates, if it was any of these people. Everybody wants to see them in jail. Everybody does. Nobody is okay with this.
Of the lone trafficker just doesn't make sense because Epstein's directly linked to another guy who is also abusing women. So after all of this, they're really asking you to believe the unbelievable. They're asking you to not believe what they've...
The difficult part for me is that I do trust Kash Patel and not Pam Bondi, but I do trust Kash Patel. I do trust Dan Bongino. And everything Trump has done up until now has been a very good thing. Like, he's got so many wins under his belt in the first 6 months that it's like so difficult to believe that this has turned into what it has. It makes no sense to me. And I don't know how you can make the argument that he's not involved in some way, given everything that's going on.
They've said about this case, both out of office and now in power. They're asking you to not believe public reporting linking Epstein to other known pedophiles. They're asking you not to believe suspicious circumstances regarding settlements of powerful people. They're asking you to believe that Epstein was just the greatest tax advisor and financial advisor on the planet that all of these billionaires needed to consult, despite the fact that there are entire organizations built around providing the same services as this without the, links to crimes. They're asking you to believe that when people are talking about Snow White and Beauty and the Beast, they're referencing Disneyland. And they're especially asking you to believe that they have found 900 new victims since reviewing these files and exactly 0 new perpetrators. So I'm just not buying it personally. I find it insulting to the entire.
Nobody's buying it. Nobody's buying it. Let's be real. Nobody is buying any of this. All right, let's move on. We have a few other topics to cover here. Okay. Dershowitz. Andrew. Okay. Now, recently, the FBI has released videos relating to Epstein dying in custody, which was ruled a suicide. Dan Bongino and Kash Patel gave a very awkward and very strange interview where they both said that it's very clear that he committed suicide. And once we, the public, see the video footage, we're going to agree with them that there's no other way that he could have died. Well, let's see if that's true.
This is the worst cover-up of my life.
Ah, no! No way, it's the same video? Yeah, it is the same video. Damn it! My videos got all mixed up. Alright, let me find it really quick. Alright, let's see. Let's see if we can find it.
The raw Epstein footage was modified according to its metadata.
Yeah, well, spoiler alert.
This whole Jeffrey Epstein cover-up is crazy, and honestly, I have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. I can't.
It's the controversial video that is triggering a MAGA mutiny. It's supposed to show.
All right, so are they really going to mess all the? They're just going to talk through all this stuff. All right, so here's where it matters, right here. I had the original footage, but I guess it's gone now. Here you can see, if you pay attention, they correctly highlighted it here. If you watch the entire video, the only other thing that happens is at about 10:40, almost an hour and 10 minutes before this, the guy who's sitting here gets up and walks away. And then you see some orange right here, just very faint. And it's been publicly stated that that was Epstein in the orange for some reason out of his cell. That being said, his cell is not here. His cell is not here. His cell is not here. His cell is over here off screen. This is a common area. So we're watching not any of his cells off screen, and we're also seeing this happen in 3 seconds. It jumps forward. And it jumps forward by about a minute and 1 second. So it just keeps getting weirder and weirder the more you get into it. Let's continue forward. 2021 to 2023, Ghislaine Maxwell is tried and convicted. This is after his death, right? So this is all covering, this is all covering his death. Let's move this forward a little bit more. Okay, no client names are revealed in court. Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted of trafficking underage girls to nobody. In December 2021, Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted on 5 federal counts, including sex trafficking of a minor, conspiracy, and transporting underage girls to Jeffrey Epstein and nobody else for abuse. None of the clients or individuals she allegedly trafficked, the victims were public... What the hell? None of the clients or individuals she allegedly trafficked to and victims were to... What the hell is this? What the hell is even this? None of the clients or victims she allegedly trafficked the victims to were publicly named, charged, or called as co-defendants. There we go. We figured it out. The trial focused on her role as Epstein and Epstein's, even though victims like Virginia Giuffre testified that abuse involved other powerful men like Prince Andrew. Florida AG in 2025, Pam Bondi releases the Epstein Files Phase 1. This is a 200 redacted pages, logs, contacts, masseuse lists, requests, full release by February 28th. Okay. Documents were more redacted than previously publicly available versions of the same documents. Now, here is a list of all the names that we have that seem like they may or may not be involved in this whole case from front to back. We have Barry Kreischer. I encourage you to look into him deeply. Maybe you'll find something I could not. Alex Acosta, look into him deeply. Jean-Luc Brunel, look into him deeply. Prince Andrew and Alan Dershowitz, look into them very closely just to make sure. Mostly these three, but these two here. I have not heard anybody talking about these three, but as of now, these are the three big names that have popped up multiple times. From 2005 to 2009, Epstein federal investigation occurred. The SDNY initiated federal... hold on, let me get some music going. The SDNY initiated federal sex trafficking charges on July 2019, but the case was dismissed following Epstein's death. Critics argue SDNY had opportunities to escalate prosecutions or pursue co-conspirators, but stopped short, fueling suspicions of a cover-up. SDNY had the Epstein files at the time that Pam Bondi was saying that she was releasing them. Now, what she released was a joke. It wasn't actually the Epstein files. It was what everybody already had of the Epstein files. It was a release for stupid people where no thing was actually released. 2025, withholding of the Epstein files. During Pam Bondi's Phase 1 rollout, she publicly accused SDNY and the FBI's Manhattan field office of withholding key Epstein documents. Quote-unquote truckloads worth that could undermine transparency. This allegation triggered internal backlash, and Bongino nearly resigned. Legislative action, bills and committee fights, and policy silence. Despite pressure from MAGA influencers, files were hidden by SDNY. Here's a video showing that they were hidden by SDNY. Forgive the inclusion of Elmo in that thumbnail. Elmo really doesn't have anything to do with this, although I have my suspicions. Oops.
That were invited to the White House. I was given one of those infamous, infernal white Epstein files binders that day, and we weren't actually invited, by the way, to be given those files. We weren't invited to be given anything on Epstein or even to meet with Pam Bondi. We were there for a cool initiative by the White House to, ostracize the mainstream media and instead say, hey, we're not going to reward bad behavior and propagandists. We're going to give you access to the upper echelons of the Trump administration. That's why we were there, to meet with all kinds of officials in the Trump White House. But during our maybe 15-minute meeting with Pam Bondi, she brings in these banker boxes full of these Epstein files and hands them to us. And as soon as we saw them, we were like, whoa, Epstein files Phase 1, what are we getting our hands on? She clarified very quickly and said, no, this is, there's nothing juicy or dirty in here. This is what was given to me by the FBI when I requested these files, as I promised you I would. But a whistleblower called me last night and said, actually, the SDNY is hiding truckloads of these documents, trying to subvert the president, the attorney general, and you. So the real story is that there are still deep state swamp creatures in the federal government trying to subvert the president's agenda. That was the story. Now, here's the strange part.
Okay, so this is a story that I heard multiple times at the time of the Phase 1 quote-unquote release of the files. There was only one phase, so I guess the phase of the release of the files. Now, like I said, I've heard this multiple times, and then there was a pickup at the field office. Now, when I heard this, I thought, well, If this is true, and I am the AG, what would I do? I would order the FBI to raid the Southern District of New York, and anybody found holding or hiding a single page of any of the Epstein files would be brought in on federal charges and relieved of their duties in the meantime. But that's not what happened. What happened was, eventually, a week or so later, after the deadline laid out by the Attorney General Pam Bondi, they did they did get their hands on the files. Okay, so how could it have been hidden? There's a few different ways. Nobody was seen per se with burn bags or anything like that outside or around SDNY in the time period that they were supposed to be delivering these files. However, transparency gaps with official video releases show unexplained edits and omissions, internal control and weaknesses with no external oversight of courthouse secure disposal, and credentialed suspicion. Metadata anomalies and related DOJ releases suggest deeper issues, and there's no chain of custody on these documents. Now, if you order something from UPS, there is a chain of custody. You should have that for highly classified documents as well. There's absolutely no reason why there shouldn't have been some kind of a chain of custody involved. All of this reeks of a deep cover-up. Okay? I believe this is actually the video I was looking for before. Yeah, here it is. I don't know why it was there and not further up, but whatever. That happens sometimes. It took me a long time to set up all the evidence, but you can see the same thing again. What you're not seeing in this short clip, however, what you're not seeing in that short clip, however, is you're not seeing the changes in aspect ratio between the videos. You're not seeing the fade of orange. You're barely seeing people in the background who are changing garbage bags and stuff like that. So it's time to switch gears a little bit. Now let's get into the thing that we're kind of really talking about in this video, because it's not all about Epstein. Epstein is one person. Epstein is one person in a great grand conspiracy that takes up all of these pieces of the puzzle. We're going to watch the vast majority of this video, but not all of it. So hang in there with me.
Attached to the Buffalo Science Museum. That school that's attached to the Buffalo Science Museum has doors that can go from the Science Museum into the school. Those doors.
I'm not going to interrupt a lot in this video because I think it's really important and really powerful that you hear as much as you can, unadulterated and uninterrupted.
Doors are not locked. Individuals can get into them, right? Stranger danger, right? And that happened. So a stranger went into the school. It's a grade school. It's a very low school. And this person grabbed a male and a female child.
It's a very low school?
Low grade school. Low grade school.
So like first through fifth.
Yeah. So so kids under the age of 10.
Oh, fuck.
So it goes into the school and grabs a young female child and a male child and tries to leave. And I'm gonna parcel this story up in kind of the way that the information came in. At first, the information that came in was that there was one female child that was, it was an attempt.
This is in Buffalo, New York.
Did abduction. There was.
Now, I want you to keep in mind, too, that not far from Buffalo, New York is where Epstein had his New York massage parlor.
No report about the second child. Kind of a big deal. The second child, the boy, had pissed himself. And when his parents came, sorry, I'm getting fucked up. When his parents came to pick him up.
Take your time, brother.
Yeah, sorry. Give me a second.
You good?
You're all right, man.
When his parents came to pick him up, the school did not disclose to the parents that the kid was a part of an attempted abduction.
So hard to watch.
So when parents asked him, why did my kid piss his pants at school? The teachers and the people in charge did not tell them that there was an attempted abduction.
It's difficult to watch a grown man be brought to tears by a story like this. It's really hard to watch. Maybe you don't have kids, maybe you do, maybe you're planning on having kids. When you hear these stories, there's only two appropriate responses, and it's unadulterated rage or, well, I don't want to say what the other is.
The school then deleted the video of the attempted abduction.
The fuck?
And the district attorney's office, excuse me. And the district attorney's office only got it because somebody within the school had the wherewithal to record it and then give it to them. The district attorney's office has sent subpoenas, so like court order documents from judges that are signed, to the school's legal representatives. And those representatives have intentionally not responded to them. Now, here's the weird thing, which is like, this is the biggest.
If you weren't paying attention or you were jerking off on your cell phone for a second there, I just want to make it super duper clear what just happened. A school in Buffalo, New York knew that there was an attempt to abduct one of the children on their campus. And rather than reporting it to the police, they deleted the evidence. They deleted the evidence. Sound familiar?
Issue right here is that specific one is the one that sent me over the edge. Obviously, I'm emotional from it. So, the biggest issue with this entire story, well, one of the issues with this entire story is that when subpoenaed, these legal representatives for the Buffalo School Department are ignoring the subpoenas and not responding to them, but being obstructive.
Yeah, I was about to say, not just not responding, but obstructing. Obstructing the solution of potential child abuse.
Obstructionists, and actually giving information to school administrators and school personnel to not talk to the police or assist the police in any way. In fact, to obstruct us, like intentionally, do not do these things. Here's how you prevent the police from doing their job. So, and here's where like this crux is coming in, why it's kind of a whistle.
This is an unsubscribed podcast. I want you guys to go and subscribe to the unsubscribed podcast.
The lower thing is, there are people that are trying to get this information from the schools, and the main obstructionist are these lawyers who, once again, I said, are ignoring subpoenas and court orders. And the only way that you can overcome that is if somebody from the court system, judge, attorney general's office in New York State, the attorney general of the United States, comes down and says, why are you not responding to these court orders? You're ordered to respond to them and you're not. And in this specific case, you know, like destruction of evidence, you know, which is huge. And then not telling one of the, you know, the kid's parents.
Now, if somebody comes forward, you said somebody had the wherewithal to record the surveillance video or whatever it was.
Yeah.
If somebody comes forward with that, that's still usable as evidence.
So they have to, person, that's a weird thing about New York State. And I'm not a lawyer, and my knowledge is limited in that, but from my understanding, you need to have somebody confirm the authenticity of the recording.
So this requires a third party that is agreed upon by the state and the legal team, you know, and So they were destroying evidence, and this is in New York, so there's a little bit more, a few things I want to get into specifically, so let's skip forward.
Footage.
Gotcha. So whoever recorded versus anyone can say yes and verify that.
So I'm not sure. Like that's something for like the lawyers to do. I'm not sure how that process goes, but
the story is pretty rough.
School district did that,
dude. I'm telling you, it's a lot of the schools. When I say that's the worst example that I have, which is obviously a horrible example, I can't tell you the amount of shit that I have to go through in order to go to a school, talk to a principal, and say, what did the kid tell you? And they'll go, I can't talk to you. I've got to talk to my lawyers. You're like, it's in your job to protect the kids? I can't tell you how many
teachers, principals, guidance counselors are all mandated reporters. I want to remind you as we continue, mandated reporters. That means that they're required by law and duty to report when stories like this happen to the police.
Another one. I had a girl of his
to protect the children.
Man, I'm getting fucked up.
Man. Chad says
That's
most schools have
fucking
never protected
wild.
children.
Like,
It's
especially
true.
if your own
I
kiddo
grew up in
and you
those
don't even know.
schools.
They come home,
They
they're
don't
scared,
give
they're
a
confused,
fuck
they
about
have
your
no idea
children.
what just
That's why you
happened,
need
and
to
then
be homeschooling
no
your
one's
children.
telling them.
If
Like,
you
it
were
sounds
a
like a
parent,
made-up
the
story.
loyalty to the money above the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
I think it's a mix of fear. I think it's the fear of there's a lot of shit there. I don't think it's like dirty money. I think it's a fear of losing your job. It's a fear of the people that are above you that are going to come back and get you. I think it's the fear of stepping out of line and then getting, reprimanded.
Bystander.
But like one of the cases that I had is a girl went to a child abuse.
I don't want to.
But it took 3 fucking times to
It
get
took
to
3
you.
times. The first time, it's easy. Hey, CPS. This girl says that she got beat. I don't really know what's going on. Here you go. And then CPS begins an investigation. And then the law enforcement referral from CPS comes to me. And then if CPS brings her in, does an interview, and it's valid, I go talk to dad and arrest him. That didn't happen the first time. The second time, there's video fucking
It's a lot of fear.
proof. That she's got a video on her
Chad says
phone
it's
and
fear
shows
of your
you.
own life. It's just fear.
And then you do nothing.
in general.
And
There's a quote that everybody has heard a million times by now. I wonder if I can find the exact quote. First they came for the communists, and I didn't speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. That being said, fuck communists. We need to get rid of them. We need to go for the come for the communists. But after that, we stop.
Yeah. And so like those are the two. That's one that I'm directly involved in. That's one that I happen to know about that I'm not investigating. And I can tell you that myself and the people in my unit are concerned, but we've made complaints, and people in my chain of command above me have made complaints, and we've had to go back to be like, let's look at this address of the school. What's that?
What's the outcome you want on this? Like I don't.
I'll tell you the outcome I want. I want to see all of these people sit in jail for the rest of their fucking lives. I want them to sit and reflect on how pitiful and disgusting they were for their entire lives until they pray to God for forgiveness, for sacrificing children to their bureaucratic state. That's what I want. That's what I want to see.
I want the one school counselor that I investigated arrested for failing to report. You're not a school counselor if you don't know how to tell people that a child's being abused. She needs to be arrested or at least charged. If you want to put her on probation, fucking fine. but something needs to happen. And I'm not saying it needs to happen as like there's no legal system. I'm saying that there has to be a repercussion, so then people who see if you don't report because you didn't report, that there's repercussions.
So like the people aren't reporting because they're worried the system will fuck them, but if you don't report, the system will fuck you too.
So
like you need to do your job.
It's like this dual concern, right? You don't have to talk to the police. Like everybody has their own individual rights for self-preservation. You know, your Fourth Amendment rights. You don't have to, Miranda rights. You don't have to talk to me. But it's different when you're a mandated reporter, and it's different when parents aren't being told why their kid. If you've got a kid, you've got a kid, you've got a kid. You don't have a kid yet, not you either. If you
pissant, go have kids, have 6 of them.
You picked up your fucking toddler from school, and they pissed themselves and they're crying, and you're like, "Oh my God, what's Jimmy? What's going on with you?" The first thing you would do is go up to the teacher and be like, "Hey, what happened?" And you would expect a real answer.
The teacher's gonna be like, "Oh, you drank too much milk. Jimmy just had a bad day. He just drank too much milk, and nothing happened otherwise. There was no reason. He just peed. He wanted to pee his pants, and he just peed. Nothing to see here."
Somebody tried to steal Jimmy. What you wouldn't expect is for that school to delete video footage. What you wouldn't expect is for that school to be like, "Oh, you know what? I'm not sure. Something happened. You'll have to talk to an administrator about it. I'm not sure. About it." It's people that are afraid of doing the right thing. Like these school teachers. Teachers and principals are afraid to do the right thing, and like I said, we can guess why. I've got my own hypothesis. This is why, but either way, they're failing to do the right thing for one reason or another, and some of them are bad. And I'll give you another example. This case might have been a fluke. It could have been like kids experimenting, and then one of them got scared. It could have been absolutely. Absolutely nothing. It still could be absolutely nothing. I've left 6 messages on a principal's voicemail saying, "Hey, I just need you to talk to me. I need the phone numbers of the parents. I only have the phone numbers of the kids. I don't want to call the kids. Please give me the phone numbers of the parents, of the adults of these kids, of the police report that you called 911 for, to have police already show up. I just don't have the phone numbers for the parents." And